following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers. Another edition of the Flat Earth Files. Hope everyone had a great week. Going to be a pretty quick episode. I just wanted to respond to a couple of emails that we've gotten. And then, of course, with the Chinese Satelloon making the news, wanted to speak on that. And then also talk a little bit about the Firmament. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it at least once. 1958 Encyclopedia Britannica documents the Firmament, and we'll talk about that as well. I want to thank everyone for all your emails. We've had a very busy week. The wife's had to pick up more hours because, again, the medical community is such a shortage. She's picking up extra hours, extra days, and I've been doing awareness for soldier suicide prevention here in February. So that's taken up a couple of hours every day, worthwhile cause to raise attention to that. So busy month. We've got lots of interviews confirmed. Bart Sabrell, we will interview Mr. Sabrell. That's February 22nd in the evening, so we should get that out shortly before midnight. Of course, he is the gentleman that used to go around with the Bible asking the astronauts to put their right hand on the Bible and swear they landed on the moon. Not one would do it. In fact, one took a swing at him. Another said they were going to call the CIA on him. And according to Bart, a couple of the folks who were part of the Apollo mission have recently passed, so he's got some new information to share with us. So we look forward to that. And then we do have an interview on the 8th with another listener, and we are trying to schedule a time and date with another listener. So we have a very, very busy month, and keep the emails coming in. And let's kick it off today. We have a new listener from South America. Says she heard a girl on Instagram talk about the flat earth theory and got intrigued by the whole thing. And I think that's something I'm really happy to hear, because for so long before, anytime we heard something like that, we were quick to just delete and move on to the next thing. Goes on to say, got intrigued by the whole thing, searched on Spotify, and she found our podcast and has been listening to it for a few weeks now. Says she's very confused. In the beginning, I felt crazy to even be considering the flat earth theory, but I'm starting to get used to it. And, you know, as I talk to people within the flat earth community, which is a tremendous community, you know, the people are great. And I think we all kind of went through that. I don't know if cognitive dissonance is the right word to use, but, you know, in all the awakenings of truth that I encountered, that was the biggest. It was kind of a punch to the stomach, right? I mean, 9/11 was a tough pill to swallow for me, because I had invested so much time in my life in Iraq, and then the lies of Iraq. And that's when you really have an issue with your government, especially when you have friends with whom you served did not make it home. But when you realize that they lied to you about, this is the biggest lie. That's why when people ask me, George, why do you even spend time on it? Because this is the biggest lie. You know, July 20th, 1969, the 201st day of the year. Again, if you're not familiar with numerology, 201 is a big deal to the Jesuits. Just look at Event 201, which again took place in October of 2019. Event 201, just for no particular reason. They just chose 201, the same suite in which the Jesuit Pope hangs out in. That's the day they lied. No, 3 Freemasons took an oath never to speak about it. And I believe Stanley Kubrick was the mastermind behind it, because if you look, 2001: A Space Odyssey, I believe, was filmed right around the same time. A lot of people believe that was going on. And I can give you all kind of numerology that goes into Stanley Kubrick's death. Stanley Kubrick died March 7th, 1999. And of course, arguably his most famous movie was 2001: A Space Odyssey. So if you take his death date, which is March 7th, 1999, and you count how many days between March 7th, 1999 and January 1st, 2001, it's exactly 666 days. But I digress. Let's get back to the email. But yeah, that is the biggest red pill to digest, my friend. It truly is. It goes on to say, I have a question. I haven't listened to all the episodes yet, but this topic has really been bothering me. The girl I listened to on Instagram was talking about an inversion of the magnetic field, which apparently happens to our flat Earth every 1,000 or 2,000 years. According to her, it's close to happening again, and it says it'll be the so-called apocalypse described in the book of Revelation in the Bible. Is our Earth really sustained by magnetic field? Is it an inversion of the magnetic field even a thing? And, you know, all I can speak to, as long as I've been alive, my compass has always pointed north. So I think what she's talking about is when you get into a magnetic inversion is where the magnetic pole flips and the South Pole would be pulling magnetic. Well, that doesn't make any sense on a flat Earth, right? Because if you look at our flat Earth map, it's surrounded by an ice wall. South is everywhere away from the North Pole. So again, I believe that doesn't make a lot of difference to me. Now, if I'm missing something, if I'm not familiar with, I would love one of our listeners to say, no, this is what she's talking about. Because the only magnetic inversion I'm aware of is based on a pole basis where you have a North Pole and a South Pole. And all of a sudden, instead of your compass pointing north, it points south. And that supposedly happens every 1,000 years or so. And I've done land navigation, everything else, never has it once pointed south. So to me, this is more energy-based, believing on what Nikola Tesla said. You know, the moon is the positive, excuse me. The sun is the positive energy. The moon is the negative energy, just like a battery. Sun positive, moon negative. If you put something in the moon's light, it gets colder. If you put it behind a tree, it warms up. So to the people who say that the sun's light is what makes the moon light up, that's just not correct. And the moon, I believe, is more of a plasma. It's not an actual rock where you can land on, I don't believe. So to our new listener down in South America, thanks for listening. If I missed the boat, if I read it wrong, and to all the listeners out there, if you know what she's talking about, send me an email, theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. Again, theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. Maybe I'm confused myself. So nevertheless, thank you so much for that email. And, you know, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Our next email, as I referred to earlier, is someone who wants to come on the podcast, says, I've been listening to your podcast and I love the content. I've been down the rabbit hole for a while and I have been trying to wake up as many people as I can. I would like to come on the podcast and share some gems with you. So I reached back out and we have a date out there for him. So we're hoping to get him on sometime this month. And I love to hear people's stories of their awakening and how they came upon the flat earth theory. Our next email comes from Robert. It says, listen to the podcast. Really great stuff. Finally, a legitimate flat earth podcast being put out regularly so I can listen to and feel connected to the movement. Thanks. All of life is created in perfect harmony, a grand conflict of dueling forces on opposing sides in constant struggle with each other, but finding a perfect, harmonious balance in that struggle. Quote, when an immovable object meets the unstoppable force, we have light and dark, we have night and day, we have sun and moon, hot and cold, the top of the sky, which is where things get lighter matter, is less and deep into the earth, where the more condensed it gets, and matter is almost absolute. Man and woman, solid and liquid, where humans, amongst all things, are intimately connected with life and all things. From the shape of our eyes, what we see, to the perspective of the known universe, to a woman's menstrual cycle, influenced by the energy of the moon, which gives us our understanding of the rotation of the objects that dominates our reality and provides us with constants to formulate the idea of time and numbers. To say the imagination of a globe floating through space is more grandeur than that is the boasting of the ego in proclaiming that man can imagine a world better than the gods. A world more suited to the desires of man, yes, but in this a weaker version of man becomes easily enslaved to give up one's purpose for comfort, in the sense that its own purpose is not for its needs and wants are satisfied. And thank you very much, Robert. And he says, dune buggies on the moon. Watch the trail of moon dust kicked up behind the wheels when they're riding around. The dust falls right back to the moon, actually arching the same as sand falls back to the earth. Gravity this time is being used against them. Fantastic email, my friend. Thank you very much. Don't be a stranger. Fantastic words. Quite the wordsmith, Robert. Thank you. We also had another email from Homeschooling Mama. She reached out and said, I was wondering if you have any suggestions on how to start sharing with loved ones about the flat earth / geocentric model. It seems so overwhelming. I want to share with a particular extended family member, but it seems there's not enough time to share all I want in one conversation. And I don't want to leave them with partial information. I know it will be a process over time. What is a good way to start and open up interest in conversation without sounding completely ridiculous? Again, that's from the Homeschooling Mama. And again, when you get to people's awakening, it's got to be something that they want to do. Kind of, you can lead a horse to the water, but it's up to them to drink it. So, and I think I've also said less is more with these subjects. If the loved ones that you're trying to share this information with enjoy watching videos, I'm going to put in the show's description today, it's going to say basically these videos are breadcrumbs that you can leave. You can just send them maybe an email or Facebook Messenger to your family. Say, hey, check this out and tell me what you think. And the first one is the Flat Earth Clues Introduction. And then there's a couple of videos in there. And of course, if they are, maybe they prefer to read books. Well, again, you can spend $7 and you can, or even you can even order them the book and have it shipped right to their house. William Carpenter's 100 Proofs That the Earth is Not a Globe. And of course, personally, I think the two best arguments when they come back and try to retort is water always finds its level, you know. Put some water in a Pyrex glass, kind of shift it back and forth. The water always finds its level. And of course, we said many times we can see too far. Just go to YouTube and put in, what is it, a Nikon P900 camera, and there's just hundreds of videos showing where with the naked eye, it looks like the boat is going over the horizon. But as they zoom in, it pulls it right back. So we can just see too far, which we all know. And again, look for those links, and I think you'll enjoy them. Even people who are longtime, flat Earth folks, I would check them out because there's a couple really good videos in there that might bring a little more knowledge to you, and I hope it does. And I hope it's another weapon in your arsenal to help wake people up. So, Homeschool Mama, as always, thank you. Next one comes from our friend across the pond. Shout out to Ollie. Found your podcast while doing a few late nights, fitting a bathroom for a customer. I'm hooked, drawn in completely. My family think I'm the odd one. Welcome to the club. As I say that, I'm open to the idea of this world being flat, not a ball. But when I say until I see it with my own eyes, I'll be speculating the idea. They can never say 100% the earth is round. There's always that 99% surety, but 1% doubt. He also goes on to say, I've always held an open mind to any ideas and wacky inventions, one being the water-powered car invented by the one and only Stanley Meyer. I know it's a bit off topic, but I just wondered what your thoughts were on the subject of inventions being black-shelved by large corporations. And of course, Stanley Meyer, if you've never heard his story, here's a guy, and you can still find his video on YouTube. Here's a guy who came up with a car that could run on any kind of water, ocean water, your sink, anything. And he could drive it across the country. And of course, Big Oil said, I don't think so. And I believe, as the story goes, some Belgian businessman proposed to, invest a pretty large amount of money into his project. And they met him at a diner. And unfortunately, they poisoned his cranberry juice. And he was with his brother. Stanley grabbed his throat, ran out to the parking lot, collapsed, and died right in front of his brother. His brother turned around, and the quote-unquote Belgian businessman were gone. On my other podcast, I did an episode on him a year and a half ago, maybe, almost 2 years ago. I'll put that link in the show description as well if you want to hear more about Stanley Meyer. I know we're a little off topic, but also, if you all remember, was it the Big Top shooting in Buffalo, New York last year, I believe? The security guard who was killed, who I believe was a retired police officer, also happened to come up with a water-powered engine. I'll put that link in the show description for you all, too, if you wanted to go down that particular rabbit hole. Now, Andrew did reply, and he did have an additional question about the flat earth theory. He said, if we're on a flat plane surrounded by an ice wall, how do they manage to patrol and secure the entire wall? Well, again, you go back to the Antarctic Treaty. And originally, I want to say it was 28 countries or so that originally signed on, maybe more, maybe less. But today, as of 2022, last year, there are currently 55 countries that are part of the treaty, and they're all assigned their certain maritime waters to guard. And there's a video which I sent to him, and I will include this. I always tell y'all, make sure you go to the show description. This podcast, every show, in the show description will have the email address, and I will have all kinds of videos for you to take in, because the flat earth theory, this is something that out of all the conspiracy theories can be a little difficult to do primarily on audio. That's why I really encourage you guys to go to the show description and check out all the tools that I put in there for you. But again, there's 55 countries that are part of the treaty, and they all share responsibilities as to protecting their assigned areas. And there's a video showing some guys south of Australia, not even close to the 60th parallel, and a Navy ship rolls up on them, tells them to turn around. And there are other videos you can tell people in the area, they get turned around by the military. So there you go. Now, I also wanted to add that, again, talking about the firmament, 1958, take two, the Encyclopedia Britannica documents the dome of 13,000 feet. Now, I'm going to play this 3-minute audio clip for you. But again, I will also put this in the show's description so you can visually see it.
Okay, you guys remember how I showed you the maps that were here on Earth before 1958, before the governments took them out? And I'm going to show you the Encyclopedia Britannicas in the public libraries before 1958. Here's Volume 2 out of the Alphabet A. And we're going to flip to the Antarctica, and this is from 1958, as you can see. Now, We're going to flip to the Antarctica and see what the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1958, before the Antarctic Treaty, says is there. Now, you won't find this in the new encyclopedias because the government's banned them. But what I want you to notice right here is, notice how it says the flights proved inland areas to be featureless in character, with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Take a really, really close look at that. Now I'm going to zoom it in for you. When they returned to New Zealand, these flights proved the inland areas to be featureless in character, with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, let me show you with an image of what a flat earth map would look like. Now, this is what a latitude 80 degrees south would look like on a flat earth map. As you can see, the dome comes down closer to you over the wall, which will be about 13,000 feet. Now, if you go back out into the center of the earth, or up the North Pole, and try to go up to the firmament with a little bit of calculation, it's going to show that it's about 385,500 feet away. It's really, really simple, folks. Now, if you're not familiar with any of this at all, and you're just now new to all this, you could say, well, this guy is crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But what you got to ask yourself is, why do all the maps before 1958 show a flat earth with the ice wall around it and a firmament, a dome? And why does the encyclopedia tell you that there's a dome there, and it gives you the exact height at a certain latitude and longitude? Well, the reason is because in 1958, that's when all governments and all nations of the world signed the UN treaty to ban all civilians from going to the Antarctica, and NASA came in and erased everything, just like they're erasing everything today. So again, ask yourself, if all this existed before 1958, why doesn't it exist now? How come it all of a sudden was erased and just disappeared out of your history books, out of your encyclopedias, out of your libraries? Wake up, people. Wake up.
And there you go. Again, you're talking 385,000 feet. So, from the Arctic Circle, you're talking about the firmament's about 72 miles straight up in the air, which is quite a long way. And then, of course, there's the Go Fast rocket. You can go to YouTube, just put in Go Fast rocket, and you can see that it hits the firmament, if it's still there. But it should be there. So there you go. So again, thanks, Ollie. Appreciate the email. And did we have one more? No, I think that is it for now. Again, questions, comments, you want to come on and talk about your knowledge of flat earth or your awakening, your personal your personal journey to the truth, I'd love to have you on. It is the flatearthfiles@gmail.com. Again, thanks for all the emails. Keep them coming. Keep me on my toes, and we love to share this information with the listeners. So there you go, a little information on the firmament. And I had a question for you guys. I was thinking about this. They say that the sun is 93 million miles away, right? And I don't even know how to read it. If you take 93 million miles and multiply it by 5,280, you can break it down on Google how many feet that is. It's ridiculous. It's like 4.9 gazillion feet. And we have friends that moved to Ecuador. Ecuador has a little bit of an elevation to it. And I had friends telling us, well, you got to be careful in the summertime because with the elevation, you get you get sunburned quicker. And then I remembered back. I lived in Colorado Springs from 2004 to 2011. Actually owned a house there. We kept it until about 2017, and we ended up selling it when we decided we weren't going to go back. We had rented it out for 5 or 6 years. But I remember vaguely in the summertime being at cookouts, etc. Even while it didn't feel like I was super hot, you would get sunburned quicker. But here is my point, and humor me for a second. If the sun is really 4.9 gazillion feet away, okay, because 93 million times 5,280, that's how many feet the sun away is. Are you telling me that a couple thousand feet is going to make that big of a difference with sunburn? Again, I believe the sun and the moon are local. Maybe 70 miles away in the firmament, like you just heard with the Encyclopedia Britannica. Then, absolutely, a couple thousand feet would make a difference. But if the sun is almost 5 gazillion miles away, a couple thousand feet wouldn't make a dang difference whatsoever. So there's another thing for y'all to think about. I'd like your thoughts on that. Right? That doesn't make any sense to me. And lastly, I told you I was finally going to keep a podcast at 30 minutes. Finally, the Satelloon, the Chinese Satelloon. I've been telling you folks that the satellite theory is just another lie in the web of lies. That the ones out there are primarily Satelloons, a.k.a. balloon satellites, which they're inflated with helium. They're put up high where there is less air, and they're able to float around. The whole thing of, satellites being put onto rockets and going into orbit on their own is, of course, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you go to Google or any search engine and say, there is something called a satellite map, and there's so much space junk out there. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But they started launching Satelloons way back in 1958, and there's one that's been, and of course these are the ones that they only tell us about. But NASA's even released something called the Orbital Reflector back in December of 2018. And as far as I know, that one is still in the atmosphere floating around. Now, something that you all should know is that NASA is the number one consumer of helium. Go to your search engine. Who uses the most helium in the world? NASA. NASA is the biggest consumer of helium. And they annually use almost 75 million cubic feet of helium. You want to know who number 2 is? The Department of Defense. So anytime I see something like that, I think, wow. So that the top 2 consumers of helium are government entities, NASA and the Department of Defense. Then I said to myself, well, who actually makes the helium? Well, it turns out that ExxonMobil is the largest producer of helium. And their top 2 shareholders are, no surprise, Vanguard and BlackRock, the same companies that own everything else in this world. And that's the reason why all the news stations, mainstream media are all in lockstep. Google, all these people are owned by Vanguard and BlackRock. So it always goes back to that. So when they created the shortage a couple years ago, they made a ton of money. So Department of Defense and NASA paying a lot of money to ExxonMobil for their helium. Satellites, I don't buy it. Satelloons, yep. And I even chatted back and forth with David Weiss briefly last night about the Satelloon, all the propaganda that's out there. Everybody wants to shoot it down. Joe won't shoot it. It's just a circus to keep us, to keep our attention away from everything else that's going on in the world. So I know it was only 30 minutes today, but hopefully I gave you some things to think about. Make sure you check that show description. We're going to have the links to all the videos in there for you to check out. We'll be back next week with 2 podcasts. We'll have an original podcast, and then we will have an interview next week. And then the following week, we'll have an original podcast, and that should be the week of Bart Sobrell, the 22nd. So we got lots of things coming your way. Please keep the emails coming, and if you'd like to join the show, we would love to have you. I hope everyone has a tremendous weekend. Be safe. We've got a lot of bad weather coming in today and tomorrow. It's very, very cold. So take care of one another, and much love to you all. Keep your head on a swivel. Until next time, my friends, we will see you.
You're listening to the Fact Hunter Radio Network.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.